Hello, good evening. I'm Roger Johnson. Welcome to North West Tonight. Thanks for joining us on this Monday evening. Our top story.
We name this ship.
We name this ship.
Queen Anne.
Queen Anne.
Cunard names its latest cruise liner in Liverpool as crowds turn out to welcome Queen Anne.
We're all extremely proud that this is happening in Liverpool. We feel it as our spiritual home.
We are on board as Queen Anne sails in overnight to the city where Cunard was born.
On this ship, on this river heading for this city, it's impossible not to feel the pull of maritime history.
Queen Anne is Cunard's 249th ship, the first to be named in the company's birthplace for 25 years. Also tonight, stuck in the house for 6 months, the Lancashire pensioner stranded at home after his hip operation was cancelled 3 times. The BBC moves its 1 o'clock news to Salford. It's the first national news bulletin to be based outside London. We're off to Liverpool and Queen Anne shortly, but first, we all know that the NHS is under severe pressure with millions of people waiting for treatment. And that includes David Jakes from Accrington. He's been waiting for more than 12 months for an operation, while the target for non-urgent surgery is usually 18 weeks. Jonas Muller has been to see him.
David Jakes lives on his own in Accrington and has always been fiercely independent. But he's been waiting for a hip operation now for more than 12 months.
So I've no life, have I? You know, I can't go outside and do anything. I can't go out anywhere.
When you say you can't go anywhere, you haven't been anywhere for how long now?
1st of December.
You've not left the house since then?
No, I took my car for MOT and that were it. I got back, I thought, I'm not going doing that again.
Burnley General cancelled the procedure 3 times and then told him it would have to be done at the Royal Blackburn because he had a defibrillator fitted after a previous heart attack.
So I had my pre-op on the 30th of November, and ever since that day, there was nothing but put it off. You know, it seems further away now than it was at 30th of November. I just keep getting excuses.
Currently, around 7.5 million people are waiting for non-urgent treatment around the UK. Latest figures show 43% of those on the waiting list have been on it longer than 18 weeks. The East Lancashire Patients' Voices group said David's story is heartbreaking but increasingly common.
Please don't sit back and think, I'll wait, they'll be in touch. You must notify them of any changes. You must notify them if you get worse.
The Trust doesn't comment on individual cases, but told us we are managing and monitoring the waiting list very closely, indeed on a day-to-day basis. Patients are brought in for surgery or to start treatment as quickly as possible, and as you would expect, treated based on clinical urgency. We appreciate this means some people are waiting longer, and the support of local people is appreciated.
So this letter's been sent to you by the Trust, and it says here, if you want to remain on the waiting list, you don't need to do anything, but they will arrange for you to be seen in due course, and they're thanking you for your patience.
Yeah, well, my patience is running out, I'm afraid. I don't know where else I can go to get help.
Jonas Muller, BBC North West Tonight, Accrington.
Wish David all the best. Now, Cause has got a look ahead to the week's weather shortly, but first, Merseyside police are searching for a gunman after a man in his 30s was shot in the leg in Kirkby on Saturday night. Men on bikes wearing dark clothing were seen nearby just before the shooting. Sting and the Pet Shop Boys is a headline Radio 2 in the Park, which takes place in Preston later this year. The live music event will be held in Moore Park on the 7th and 8th of September. And 2 books which were written by an Edge Hill University professor about the world featherweight champion boxer Prince Nassim Hamed are being turned into a Hollywood film. Jeff Beattie there trained at the same gym as Nas, and filming is underway on Giant, which will star Pierce Brosnan and Amir El Masri. Now, it was in November 2011 that North West Tonight became the first news programme broadcast from the new Media City development in Salford. 6 months later, BBC Breakfast became the first daily national programme here on TV. And today, the BBC's News at 1 became the first daily national news bulletin to be based permanently outside London. It was presented by a North West Tonight alumna, and Phil McCann was watching.
6, 5.
The countdown to a bit of TV history being made.
1,
Today at 1, the Conservatives pledged to clarify the...
Never before has one of the BBC's 3 main TV news bulletins been based permanently outside the capital.
Hello and welcome to the BBC News at 1, live from Salford.
And the face of the history-making first show was Wirral-born former Radio Merseyside and North West Tonight presenter turned national TV star, Sally Nugent.
I'm feeling really excited. We've decided among the team that's bringing you the 1 o'clock news today to use the word excited rather than anything else. It's a real privilege to be given the responsibility of bringing the first 1 o'clock news to Salford.
There have been national TV news bulletins on BBC television since 1955 from London. They looked different. The 1 o'clock news has been broadcast on BBC One since 1986.
The 1 o'clock news from the BBC.
It sounded different.
In terms of day-to-day bulletins, there's always been that sense that they have to be in the capital because that's where decisions are made. But what we've proven at Breakfast, what the 5 Live team has proven, is it doesn't matter where you're based. What's most important is how you listen to your audience.
The News at 1 joins BBC Sport all around the studio there, Radio 5 Live on the floor above here in Salford, as well as children's TV and Radio 4 programmes, and BBC Breakfast, with whom it'll be sharing the same team of journalists and technical staff. There have also been job losses at the BBC, including in Salford, since this site opened in 2011. And with more people working from home, the corporation is soon going to be moving out of one of its 3 buildings here.
There is an overall saving to the BBC of moving the BBC News at 1 to Salford. There's been other changes in the schedule, along with the extension of breakfast from a 9:13 finish to 9:30.
It's more news at 1 o'clock, it's a little bit longer, and you will also hear more from the teams where you live too.
And it's going to be in the north.
And it's in the north. And why not?
Meaning even more northern news on BBC One. Phil McCann, BBC North West Tonight, Salford.
Right, tonight we're launching Your Voice, Your Vote across the BBC. We're hoping that you will help to shape our coverage of the general election campaign over the next month. I'm sure you'd notice there's an election on the way. We want you to tell us what you think that we should be asking the politicians during the campaign. Katie Barnfield's here in the studio. She's going to explain how it works and also take a look at some of the main election stories from around the North West today, Katie.
Well, yes, as the general election approaches, this is your chance to tell us about the issues that matter to you. Through Your Voice, Your Vote, tell us the questions you want the politicians to answer. And some of our viewers have already got in touch with us. Hilary from Manchester wants to know why no one's talking about Brexit. She says it's certainly the biggest elephant in the room. As far as I know, the Tories haven't said a word about it, while Labour have mentioned it almost in passing. Jack from Merseyside wrote, I want to see more questions put to potential candidates about how they're planning to redistribute wealth to make society more meaningful and ultimately more resilient. And Susan from Lancashire said, given that climate change will become the most challenging issue for us, why is it not at the top of the political agenda? And we really want to hear from more of you. To get involved, go to bbc.co.uk/news, go to local news and find your area. Then click on Your Voice, Your Vote, simply fill out the form and send it to us. Or you can scan this QR code with your phone's camera, which will automatically start a chat with us. And of course, you can get in touch with us by email and on Twitter. We want you to be involved in our election coverage. Tell us what's happening to you, your family, your community, and we'll cover some of those stories on North West Tonight in the run-up to polling day. Now, on to today's election news. On what's now the 12th day of campaigning, Sir Keir Starmer met military veterans in Bury. The Labour leader told reporters he would be prepared to use nuclear weapons if necessary, and he made what he called a triple lock commitment to the UK's nuclear deterrent.
We'll maintain Britain's continuous at-sea deterrent 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Deliver all the needed upgrades, and we will build 4 new nuclear submarines, like the ones I saw in Barrow.
But the Conservatives' former Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, says Labour's nuclear deterrent promises are fundamentally dishonest. The former Lancashire MP pointed out that 8 years ago, Labour's deputy leader, Angela Rayner, voted against renewing Trident. And this afternoon, the Greater Manchester MP said she had not changed her mind on nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, the Liberal Democrats again focused on damage to the environment. They're proposing a blue flag system to grade rivers, similar to the scheme which already rates beaches. And tomorrow will be busy. Labour's battle buses in the region, Sir Ed Davies in Cheadle, and Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer take part in the first televised debate. Roger.
Katie, thank you. I suspect the spotlight will increasingly turn to this region. It's a key battleground. Katie Barnfield there. We're going to do that every night, just so you know. Annabelle will be here quite a few nights just to round up all the main events that have been going on around the region every day. And I expect during the course of the campaign, we will hear from the main party leaders here on the sofa. Now, Everton Football Club's search for new owners goes on tonight following the collapse of a possible takeover by the US company 777 Partners at the weekend. They failed to meet the deadline to prove they've got enough money to buy the club, so the current owner is now exploring other options, as Richard Askham now explains.
These are uncertain times for Everton, with 777 Partners' protracted attempts to buy the club collapsing. But with growing concerns about the Miami-based consortium's stability and financial clout, some observers feel the Blues are in a better position now than they would have been.
A parting of the ways between Farhad Moshiri and 777 is in the best interest of the club. There are certainly American investors who are very keen on Everton. It therefore just comes down to an issue of price and perhaps some people being willing to swallow their pride in having to take a discount on their current position.
A position that has to take into account major debts and an expensive new stadium to complete.
There's an argument for saying that perhaps the club isn't quite worth it. So therefore, if you're willing to offer a lower price, who's willing to take a haircut in terms of their current position? But if the price is right, a deal can be done.
Yeah, well, we're going to stay in Liverpool because, as we mentioned at the start of the programme, it was an historic day on the River Mersey today, with the first naming of a Cunard ship in 25 years. The Queen Anne arrived at about 5:30 this morning and has been the main attraction in Liverpool all day. Thousands of onlookers have lined the banks of the Mersey to see her. Our Merseyside reporter Andy Gill is live for us on the pier head now. And Andy, you were on board at 5:30 this morning as she came in from Belfast.
That's right, Roger. Our stay on the Queen Anne, a bit like the Queen Anne's own stay in Liverpool, all too brief. Just had one night as she sailed from Belfast, but we did have the chance to talk to a lot of the crew and the officers and the passengers as well, and also get a lot of steps in. We walked several miles from different parts of the ship to the other parts, but it was a memorable journey across the Irish Sea. The Queen Anne arrives in Liverpool in a grey dawn. The 14-deck, 1,000 feet long ship manoeuvred into position inch by inch at the cruise terminal. The historic link between Liverpool and Cunard, something the officers and crew are well aware of.
Extremely aware of, and I think we're all extremely proud that this is happening in Liverpool. We feel it as our spiritual home. This is a place we always look forward to come back to because this is where it all started. Come to 037.
037.
Yes.
So what's it like to command Cunard's newest ship?
She's quite heavy, so she knows what she wants, so it's really nice, actually.
You say she knows what she wants. Does that mean she has a personality as a ship?
Every ship has their personality, and this one definitely has her own.
Vicky Summers from Bootle joined Cunard because of her family connections.
My Auntie Mary, she was a stewardess on QE2, and she always used to come home from like world voyages and her cruises, and she always used to tell stories about where the ship has been and the fantastic places they've been to, and I think I was just smitten.
Our journey into Liverpool began in Belfast yesterday. The Queen Anne on an inaugural voyage around the British Isles ahead of today's naming ceremony.
something different for us. We can, you know, all take part in the events, whether it's on board or whether it's ashore, making sure that our guests have a great time to take part in that as well, and essentially, you know, just enjoy the moment. It's very rare that these things come around once in a ship's lifetime.
The passengers already fans of the new ship.
It's a special feeling when you come on board. It's almost a heartbeat.
I've never been to Liverpool, so the fact that they're actually naming it in Liverpool is fantastic. It's just, there's so much to do, it's wonderful.
Everywhere you go, it's like, wow, and we still haven't discovered everywhere yet, to be perfectly honest with you, although it's a week gone by.
And extra food and drink laid in for the celebrations. You think people will be celebrating?
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. With champagne, hopefully.
Have you laid more supplies of champagne and that kind of thing?
I believe so. I've seen a few big boxes in the walk-in fridge.
Twins Nick and Mark are senior chefs on board and help plan the catering.
You get to learn from each other. You know, you've got Indian chefs, you've got chefs from South Africa, you've got chefs from Zimbabwe, you've got chefs from Mauritius, you've got chefs from Indonesia.
A late evening departure from Belfast, across the Irish Sea, to the Mersey.
There's a commercial aspect to all this. Of course, Cunard want to sell cruises. But on this ship, on this river heading for this city, it's impossible not to feel the pull of maritime history.
The Queen Anne is just the 9th of 249 Cunard ships to be named in Liverpool. Well, there was a lot of speculation about who would actually name the Queen Anne. It turned out not to be just one individual, but 5 famous women from Liverpool. That means that the godparent of the ship is the city of Liverpool. As somebody in the crowd put it this afternoon, she's ours. Now, the Queen Anne is only here for a few more hours. She's sailing away tonight. There'll be a firework display to send her on away from Liverpool. Lots more cruise ships coming to this cruise terminal over the next few months, but the next Cunard ship to come here is going to be the Queen Mary 2. She's here for a couple of days in September. Roger.
Andy, thank you very much. He'll be stowing away on board, no doubt, if she leaves tonight. I doubt it. Andy Gill there at the pier head. Of course, Cunard ships were once a familiar sight on Liverpool's waterfront, taking millions of passengers from the city to North America. Liverpool shared in Cunard's successes and tragedies for generations, and for many families, the bond there with Cunard is still strong, as Lindsay Prosser has been finding out.
Aquitania in her home port of Liverpool. She was one of many Cunard ships which crossed the Atlantic on a regular basis, at a time when it was said that the city ruled the waves.
People in Liverpool would have felt a really close connection to Cunard. The family connections of people who knew someone who worked on one of the ships would have been immediate. And you know, the sight of those Cunard liners, which would have been instantly recognisable, they were almost like kind of landmarks in the city.
Canadian Samuel Cunard won a British government contract to take mail across the Atlantic. His first ship left Liverpool in 1840. One of the early passengers was author Charles Dickens, and it was the passenger trade that enabled the Cunard shipping line to grow rapidly. From 1830 to 1930, 9 million emigrants passed through Liverpool on their way to North America.
This basement has stood still in time. Here are the names of some of the Cunard ships, the Aquitania, the Samaria, the Athenia. And here on these shelves, the luggage for the passengers travelling from Liverpool to North America would have been stored.
I think the size of this basement and the size of the headquarters here give you a sense of just how big an industry, in a way, passenger travel was in Liverpool and in the early 20th century.
Outside the same headquarters in 1915, a memorial was held to those who died when the passenger liner, the Lusitania, was sunk by a German U-boat on her way back from New York. Of the 1,100 who were killed, 600 were from Merseyside. Chief Naval Quartermaster Thomas Evans is still remembered by his family today.
My grandfather left his house back in April 1915 for what should have been a 3-week voyage and never returned back to the house.
For those who worked on the Cunard ships in the 1950s, travel meant a slice of American life. Billy Harrison's cine film captured his time at sea and he and his shipmates were known as the Cunard Yanks.
They sailed from Liverpool and they brought home the world, and they really did. You know, my granddad and his friends would talk about bringing one of the first jukeboxes back to Liverpool full of 45s of records that nobody in Liverpool had ever heard before.
The Cunard Yanks would bring anything and everything back from America.
From washing machines to movie recorders to clothes. It just must have been absolutely fantastic. People would be waiting for them to dock thinking, what have they brought me now?
In the 1960s, Cunard closed their headquarters in Liverpool, but the shipping line remains an important part of the city's history. Lindsay Prosser, BBC North West Tonight, Liverpool.
Fantastic trip down memory lane, wasn't it? Slightly grey skies in Liverpool today, unfortunately. It would have been a bit nicer yesterday with all the sunshine around, but let's see how it's looking for the rest of the week. Cause has got the forecast for us tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. Well, it's been a mostly cloudy day today for many of us. And despite the grey weather, we've had some lovely pictures still sent in from our weather watchers. This one here in Wigan. Now, looking ahead, well, we are expecting, once this front clears through, 2 more fronts to arrive in. That will bring some showers for a time and rather blustery conditions overnight tonight and for tomorrow as well. Now, for the time being, it's still largely dry out there. A lot of cloud still. But by the end of the night, we're going to see thicker cloud and some outbreaks of showery rain arriving in too. But for the time being, it's still quite mild. Temperatures overnight holding up at around 12 to 14 Celsius. For tomorrow morning then, cloudy and rather grey with some outbreaks of showery rain. Now, some of this rain may be quite heavy for a time as it spreads through during the morning. By the afternoon, though, we'll start to become drier and clearer. A few sharp showers further towards the south, but for Cumbria, for the Isle of Man, some spells of sunshine and temperatures, well, fresher, 12 to 15 Celsius. Looking ahead, well, those fronts clear through and then we're left with sunshine and scattered showers for Wednesday. Some of these showers will be heavy, potentially thundery, and it is a blustery day too, especially up over the fells for the Pennines, gusts of 40 to 45 miles per hour and remaining quite fresh with temperatures generally reaching around the mid-teens. The next few days after that, a similar story, a case of sunny spells, scattered showers, breezy at times and temperatures similar. We're looking at highs of around the mid-teens at best. And that's your forecast for now.
Oh, it's not too bad, is it? But it could be worse. We're going to go back to Queen Anne in just a moment. But just a quick reminder, if you were watching a little earlier, Katie Barnfield talking about your voice, your vote. If you want to tell us the kind of questions you want us asking while we're out and about talking to the politicians over the course of the next few weeks, you can go to the BBC website, go to bbc.co.uk/news, go to local news, find the North West. Find your area, click on there, and you'll be able to put your questions to pass them on to us, and then we'll be able to ask the questions. And of course, you can always get in touch in all the usual ways. Email is nwt@bbc.co.uk. You can find us on Twitter, X as it is now, @BBCNWT, and elsewhere on social media as well. And you'll be able to chat to us. Let's just get a final few thoughts on the Queen Anne and the official naming this afternoon from Andy Gill, who's still at the pier head for us tonight. And it was it drew quite a crowd, didn't it, in the end, the number of people that were there?
Well, you know, Roger, a Cunard Day is always a big day in Liverpool. Yes, other cruise ships come here and come here quite regularly, but there is something about the Cunard ships that really draws the crowd. There are still hundreds of people here taking pictures of the ship, taking pictures of themselves with the ship. The celebrations for the naming have not finished yet. Andrea Bocelli was singing down here earlier. They've set up a stage just down the river here, but there's more music tonight. Students from the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts are there. The DJ and actor Craig Charles, of course, is from Liverpool. He's doing a DJ set. All that happening before the ship sails away. I mentioned earlier that the people who named the ship were these 5 women from Liverpool. Katarina Johnson-Thompson, the world champion heptathlete. Jane Casey, the musician and cultural entrepreneur. The BBC's own Gunan Adamu, who presents the Afro-Caribbean programme on BBC Radio Merseyside. Mel C, the Spice Girl, and Natalie Haywood, an entrepreneur who runs a chain of cafes and restaurants in Liverpool. It's unusual for that to happen, but the idea is that this ship is now belongs to, in a way, belongs to the city of Liverpool, and it just strengthens again that bond, that historic bond between Cunard and Liverpool.
Andy, just a final thought. It underlines, doesn't it, Liverpool's determination to try and get more cruise ships coming into the port of Liverpool there, to the pierhead, to try and take some of the business perhaps from other ports in the UK.
It's an important part of the local economy, and the cruise line terminal behind me here is now being run by an outside company. The council ran it for quite a long time, but they want to expand it and make it even bigger, so you can get 2 enormous ships in at once, and an outside company is now running that. I don't have the figures off the top of my head, but the amount of money that the visitors from the cruise ships bring in when they get off the ship and they go round and they do football tours, they do Beatles tours, all that kind of thing. It's worth many millions of pounds a year. So yes, for Liverpool, it's an important part of the local economy, and they're really keen to get more ships in, not just Cunard ships, but ships from the Royal Caribbean, from Viking, from Disney, of course. All those kind of cruise ships bring people in, bring money into Liverpool.
Cheers. Thanks, Andy, very much indeed, talking to us there from the pierhead in Liverpool. Andy Gill there talking about the end of the day on which the Queen Anne was named on the Mersey in Liverpool. Fantastic. And as Andy said a little earlier in the programme as well, there's a chance to see that firework display tonight, just either side of 10 o'clock, about 10 to 10 to 10 past 10, as the Queen Anne makes her way out on her voyage from Liverpool. We'll leave you with some of the amazing images from that landmark day on the Mersey as Queen Anne was named in Liverpool, the birthplace of Cunard. Thanks for watching. Good night.
When